Hello and welcome. My guest today is Janeen Hogue, the founder of Miller-Hogue Law Firm in Charlotte. She's built a unique practice that bridges both commercial and residential real estate, surviving multiple market seasons without a single dollar in debt. We'll be diving into her non-traditional path from Wall Street to launching her own practice with just $4,000 to her name. We will also discuss delusional optimism and why it is important to refuse accepting a C-grade product. Welcome to the Growth Switch.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to talk to you today, Alex.
Our pleasure, Janine. Tell us about the very beginning of your career, because a lot of persistence, I think, was demonstrated early on that guided you also throughout the career.
Yeah. So I'm from Pennsylvania and I went to school in Ohio and I had two job offers from both firms that I worked with. They were great law firms. And then I decided to come to Charlotte to follow my brother and I didn't really have any contacts. So I came down not knowing anyone and I got lucky. I was just persistent and literally one day ended up showing up at a firm and asked them to hire me. And I just happened to be the right place at the right time and got that job. And then I also worked for one attorney particularly who spoke at my wedding and helped launch my career and then ultimately my practice a few years later.
You say that you were lucky, but usually putting effort there and being persistent helps to be lucky. What are some of the other maybe lucky moments throughout your career? The first one being how you started that you would like to share.
I think it's just being delusional and being persistent and not giving up and wanting to say things are what you achieve is you want one thing more than you want the other. You either want to watch TV or you want to learn more, or you want to get another client or you want to go out to dinner. I mean, you really just have to choose which avenue and then just push forward to that one. And I think mind shifting your mindset. In other words, a phone call with a client could be like a phone call with a friend because ultimately they become a friend. So it's when you have perception is different. I think your perseverance gets further empowered.
Now, later you decided to start your own practice.
hmm
What was your thought process from going into that initial experience to deciding that you want to have something of your own?
Good question. I grew up with a mother who had her own business. She sold real estate and started her a brokerage firm late in life, but that's how I grew up. And actually, my mom didn't go to college, and my grandmother didn't even go to high school. And my grandmother had a mini business too, much different. But anyhow, that's how I spent a lot of time with. And I would go to work instead of, going to a babysitter or those sorts of things. And I really loved the independence that they had and also the purposeful path that they had and wanted to emulate that. So when I was in my 20s, I was fortunate again to be in the right place at the right time. I had some very good mentors, and I had no business plan. I had, like I said, a couple $1,000s in my bank account, and I had student loans. I had no mortgage. I have no rich parents. I had no husband at the time, all the things. So I just tried it. I was like, what's the worst? I can go back. And then I just tried it another year and another year and another year. But I've been very fortunate my entire career, and actually most of my life, I have been friends with the universe. So all these different people help me in different ways. I never, ever would be where and who I am today had I not met the people on my path and matriculate those relationships to what they were and what they continue to be for me.
You mentioned mentors and people who helped you at the right time. Who were some of the biggest, maybe, influencers for you and for the young attorneys starting out if they don't have the mentors? You mentioned that you've been lucky, but again, I'm sure there was some strategy and persistent and reaching out on your part. What maybe some of the roles of the mentors for younger attorneys that somebody else could be looking for early in their career that you would
Right.
recommend?
I would say surround yourself by people that have attractive qualities for which you want to learn or you want to grow into that avenue. So when I first came down, like I said, to Charlotte, I didn't have a job and I was literally waiting tables because I did not want to defer my student loans while I was studying for the bar and everything else. And I met an attorney at a bar event and I ended up working for him part time. And then when I went on my own, I exchanged instead of paying him rent, I would go to court for him. And he had his own practice and he ended up speaking at my wedding and we're still close today. We still collaborate today.
Hmm.
So he was very pivotal. And then when I was at Cadwalader, which is my Wall Street law firm, I happened to have a very non-traditional attorney that I worked for. He was genius, but he was just he made everything fun and you do both, and he could teach you things, but he wouldn't make you feel small, and he's still very much in my life. And even quite frankly, going back to law school, I had two women that I worked for at this one law firm, and they taught me, and one I'm still close with teaches me how to be captain of your ship. And if someone on your team makes a mistake, it's your mistake, it's your captain of your ship. So a lot of those fundamental aspects were really instrumental. And then when I was thinking about starting my own firm, I became friends with a couple other attorneys. Jason Taylor was one who had his own firm, and just some basic concepts that he kept true to me, and a lot of other colleagues that always said, save money in the bank, because you never know when the market's going to turn, you're going to lose your job. And I've had ups and downs and sideways and backwards all the way, but I would say that was the fundamental maybe aspect. And then when I was at the firm that I left to start my own firm, the founding partner of that firm actually helped me start my firm, which is very unusual, I think, because he had nothing to gain from it. He just wanted to help somebody else. So I say people, like all my friends or people on my path, are all smarter, more confident than me in one way or another. And that's why I pick them as my friends and colleagues. And I learn from every single one of them, and I'm continually learn. And then as I got a little bit older, and then we got into the more being, a wife and a mother and those sorts of things, I had some more female mentors that weren't, some were attorneys, some were not attorneys, but I learned a lot from them, and they still remain in my life and in my sphere.
It sounds like they had quite a positive impact on you and supported you throughout.
Mm-hmm.
Could you think of maybe an advice you had from a mentor that was coming with the best of intentions, but whether it's market conditions, whether it's just something else, it was well-intentioned advice and maybe something that's quite common, but for you specifically, it wasn't quite right fit, and then you have an example of how you had to maybe go against that common wisdom to discover something of doing things differently?
That's a good question. I think primary is a lot of my mentors, and even my employment attorney is a good colleague and mentor of mine now too. I love people, and I always believe in them. But until they believe in themselves, it's not going to work. And I will go on and on and on and on with someone to try to make it work, and I go too far. I should cut it off first, or if it doesn't work, in onset, or maybe instead of being, don't worry, I'll take care of that, be more like, no, you need to do that. I wish I was more like that, and my mentors have told me that, and I haven't. 56, and I still haven't really fully drank the Kool-Aid there, but it's not necessarily my disposition, and that's been a challenge. So that would be maybe one of the primary aspects. And then another one would be to charge more to your clients. And I don't. I feel like they're all entrepreneurs, and part of my purposeful path is, if they're successful, I'm successful. The community is successful because they're all closely held businesses. And maybe those two things I can think of off the top of my head.
That's interesting. In terms of the friends and charging more, there is now a saying in some circles that friends don't ask friends for discount; they pay full price and leave a review.
Right.
So sometimes it's good to remind that if we believe in our services, we should charge more. And
Yes,
if we make friends of our clients, then, shouldn't be a relationship that will be damaged by
that's right.
sometimes.
And I need to be better in that. That's where I think I get a C rating.
Well, live and learn throughout any size of businesses. What were some of the initial challenges? Because you had, through the family, you mentioned your mother, you had that exposure to people that were quite entrepreneurial, and you had that angle. When you still first started without any outside capital, figuring it out, what were the biggest challenges that you had to overcome in those early years?
I think it's just that you have to put your time in exchange for hiring somebody else. And I still do that today. And it's a continuous challenge, because no one's going to care about it like you do. Percent. That is true facts. But I was really lucky. The boyfriend I had at the time when I started my firm is now my husband. I wouldn't have been able to start without him. I wouldn't be able to continue without him. He does care about it, as much as I do, which is very unusual. That's it. That was an initial challenge. It continues to be a challenge, unequivocally. Especially now, I feel like a lot of people my age are one type of work ethic, and a lot of people in the younger age are different. Now, whether they're right or wrong are different. Like one of my colleagues said the other day, which was so intuitive, when we were baby lawyers, we couldn't go use daycare because we never knew we were going to be home by 5 o'clock. Sometimes we're at the office till 10 o'clock at night. where now these younger attorneys demand that they just work 9 to 5. Well, they're probably right. We were wrong, but it's not how our mentality was at that time. We were just happy to have a job. We just dug in. We grew up in the 80s. It was a much different mindset.
Hmm.
And our parents, my grandmother went through the Great Depression. My parents didn't have money. My dad worked 2 blue-collar jobs when I was younger. So I grew up, differently. Whether one's right or wrong, it's definitely indifferent.
I think it's definitely different between different generations, but I'm wondering if you would agree that for any individual professional as well, there are seasons in life, and there are seasons when you need to work harder and maybe not have that healthy work-life balance because there is a specific goal that you're trying to achieve. And then, of
Yes.
course, there is a period when you need to value maybe family time and other priorities more so.
I haven't found it quite yet, but yeah.
It's work in progress.
Mhm.
When it comes to training people and hiring people, so you mentioned that your husband was somebody that helped. When you think back to your career progression of your firm, were there any other significant milestones when you hired somebody and you saw a very significant change in the way how you operated your business?
You mean because of how they operated within the company, or?
Maybe it's a role or responsibility that you were finally able to delegate, and that allowed you to have maybe freedom to do something that you couldn't before, or just
Mm.
somebody that added a fresh perspective to the way
Well,
the
I
firm
always
operates.
collaboratively take everyone else's perspectives because I always say group effort and different perspectives actually is what gets the best product. I've had like a few rare people that have cared and really dived in. So I've offered, different flexibility and options to them. But I don't know that any of them, and maybe I don't fully understand the question, would really change the way that we do things because I'm still the it person every single
Hmm.
day. I mean, I have not had a day off for 26 years. I have to be on held in because no one's going to do it unless I do it.
I'll give you an example if it helps. Many firms, for example, they do not have until a certain point, they don't have a dedicated C4, whether it's a full time or somebody in a fractional capacity. And a lot of the decisions are made on the gut feeling. And when they finally have somebody who's owns the numbers, then they're able to see that proactive advice, that whether it's a firm expansion, whether it's a hiring, whether it's structuring anything else, it allows them to do things differently. Similar, we often see with a marketing person. In sometimes even the large firms, there will be one of the partners who would be wearing a marketing hat as one of the many responsibilities. And because of that, there are limits to what can be achieved by the firm. And the moment that the firm does get the right person that understands the firm's DNA and able to come, it changes the way, it changes the trajectory of the firm.
Yeah, those are two great examples. I'm lucky because my husband's the numbers, so that was from day one, and I'm lucky I can sell ice to an Eskimo. I mean, I don't think anyone is as good as sales to me because I genuinely can connect with just about every single person that comes on my path. Whether they're handing me the meal at McDonald's or they're taking my bagging my groceries at the grocery store, or they're a CFO or a CEO that's worth like $60 million.
Mm.
There's just something, it's my one like superpower that I can connect with someone, make them believe in it, and then I can work towards that belief. But yes, I think people have done it in a tiny aspect, and that's where I struggle and get challenged with every day because I get impatient. I'm like, let me just fix that. Like you're spending way too much time on that, and that's my fault. But until I get someone who can really own it like I do, I don't know. I admire my colleagues who do grow. But I also question their work product isn't the same. Their connectivity with their clients are not the same. So
Hmm.
I think you can either be small, mighty, or average and bigger. I mean, even the prestigious firms here in Charlotte, they don't have the same tenacity when they are negotiating a transaction like I do. They're not connected with their client in the same way. Then they look at it as transactional, where I look at it as vested emotionally, which is a much different. Just
Mm.
look at doctor. A doctor either really passionately cares about their patient, or they're just on such a treadmill to get to the next patient, next patient, next patient. It's the difference, I think, in the relationship that projects the results.
Mm.
And I'm a unicorn. There's not many people, and it's to my fault, but it's what feeds me and fuels me and makes me go to the next day.
And I'm sure clients can certainly appreciate and see it because it's not something that's.
So I'm kind of extra, but it's fine. I always tell them I'll be fun extra. I'm not mean.
When it comes to the way you described it, superpowers, whether it's
Mhm.
selling or that the tenacity, do you think it's a learnable skill for somebody that maybe doesn't have an element of that, or do you
I
think that
wish.
it's
Yeah, I
innate?
don't know. I'm working on my two boys, but they're younger and the frontal lobe is not fully connected. So maybe eventually that will come. I don't know. And I don't know where I got it. I mean, I just always, and I've just been like, I see something like, I'm just going to try it, or what source. I think because I grew up, like, even though I was rather independent, I was literally 5 years old, coming off the bus by myself, making myself lunch and everything else. So, how to figure out a lot on my own, but I mentally and knew my parents were always 1,000% there and emotionally there. So I
Hmm.
knew I can always come back home per se. So maybe that's why I was like that. I don't know. Whether that's a good question. I wish I had the secret to that sauce too, as to where that comes from. And I think too, I got in trouble a good bit because I was just curious. I wasn't really doing bad things, and I had to get myself out of it. So I was like, okay, here we go again. How am I gonna mix it up so I can talk my way out of this paper bag?
Right. With such a degree of intensity throughout the years that you've been practicing in your own business as well, you obviously love it. But are you ever concerned about the burnout? Bringing yourself fully to
Every
every
two
situation.
seconds. Yes. As I went home at 12 o'clock and I was up at 5:30, whatever, to get my kid out the door. So I'm 56 and I still have a kid that doesn't drive in ninth grade. Yes, all the time. But then something happens like that next day or
Hmm.
after whatever that is just uncanny and undescribable and unanticipated that I'm like, okay, I'm still driving. I'm still diving in. I always say when there's a lot of things I've wanted in life that haven't worked out the way I wanted it to, but it's been a gift, and it's turned my path to a different direction that I would never have seen that blossoming, field of flowers otherwise. And sometimes I think a lot of people come in and out of my life because I'm with them for just a short amount of time, but it's a very intense amount of time. So I can make them kind of maybe believe in themselves for like a minute or two. And that's kind of, something uncanny and unusual, So when I've wanted something that hasn't worked out, it comes to a better situation. But I'm always like, yeah, I think about the burnout all the time. And sometimes I'm like, wait, why can I not find my trust fund? Is it not coming in the mail yet today? Like, where is it under the Christmas tree? But yes, I get and I'm 56, so I get even more tired. I definitely can feel the age, and I'm just 56.
Caring takes a lot of energy, especially when you want to do something
Yes,
properly. So I
yes,
think our audience will find that super relatable.
like 10x.
One of the things I want to ask you is specifically because you work in real estate.
Huh?
Obviously, real estate had some ups and downs throughout the
Yes,
periods, and presumably it also could have had a very significant impact on your business and your clients. How, having gone through that, having survived different cycles,
yes.
how do you think about building your business and your practice in a way that's, secured against any uncertainties, whether it's going to be a financial one or a technological one?
I thought about that as well, but the challenge is people are not reliable. Like you
Hmm.
hire someone, they're not in it for you. They are in it for them. And they can leave the next day. And they're not going to have the work product that you expect them to have. It is a unicorn. I mean, it's kind of like the 1% of the 1%, I feel like, of the world actually fully performs all in. I truly believe that. That's why I tell my kids, if you outwork someone, you will 1,000% outperform them. And that's my fear with that. Is I think my colleagues that do spread over in different arenas, they don't know what they're doing,
Hmm.
or they don't have like supervision or whatever, and they may never have an issue, but that's not the way I can walk my path. I can't put my name on something and it not be me all in all the way. And that's where I challenge with something that is and especially real estate because it's very cyclical. That's why I keep fiscally conservative. And also too, in residential, a lot of people hire and fire. I think it's horrible. These young kids don't know anything. People with
Hmm.
families, they'll like hire like 30, 40 people and then let them go and the market's down. We've never done that. That is just, but they can live with themselves. And sometimes I wish I was a better rug sweeper, but it's just not me.
Hmm.
I always say I can't say if one's better, one's not. I can just say that I walk a different path. But yeah, trust me, I think about that all the time.
I think it makes sense to do what worked for you historically and not to try to be somebody else. But when it comes to that idea of the product and service, it cannot be a secret. It has to be perfect.
Not perfect, has to be the best that you can give at that time. I think there's a difference. Like
Mm.
it's kind of like the 80-20 whatever rule. So when I'm doing something, I want to, I want to be the best I can do at that time. Is it always my best work product? No. And then will I tell people that? Yes. But that's the distinction. I'm not a perfectionist. I'm not a workaholic. I'm a survivalist and a more of a realist. And then also too, just being honest.
Right now, Janine, when you're thinking that you want to be all in, you want to deliver not perfect, but the best possible
Yeah.
service for your clients, my guess is, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that you're also, because of that, very selective about who you work with. Because if
Yeah.
you're going to care that deeply, it has to be for
Yeah.
the right people.
Yeah, and they're selective of me too, because a lot of attorneys will rug sweep or look the other way or make it easy, or if they think there's an issue, maybe not bring it up. And I'm not that. So a lot of people do not use me because of that.
Hmm.
And that's okay. I mean, that's why I tell people, I said, like, if an agent comes to me to be on the buy side, it's generally an agent who's going to work harder and times 1,000 times 1,000%. The people that are just want a cookie stamp, go in and get their checks, they will not use me because they know
Hmm.
I'll ask questions and I'll expect a higher standard of them. So they should. They're buying a
Hmm.
house, their biggest asset. Don't be half A about it. Sorry.
Don't cut corners, because that
Yeah.
will always come back and bite everybody involved.
Potentially, I don't know. I think there's a lot of people out there that don't practice like I do and are fine. They're making a heck of a lot more money, sleeping up a lot more, going a lot more vacations. But at the end of the day, when you leave the earth, can you leave a footprint that's greater and brighter than yourself? If you're just here to come in and come out and make the money, you're not going to achieve that. So what's the purpose of your life? I don't know. I mean, to be bigger and then maybe resolute with the how the economy goes up and down, just so you can hedge against that, or is it that hey, you made title better in your hometown because you care? Simple as that. You made people feel good about themselves because you cared. Simple as that. That I think is much more impactful. No one's going to remember, like they always say, what car you drove, what house you lived in, whatever, but they certainly will make you remember how you made them feel. And that's my purposeful path. And I feel if I'm not doing that, then I'm on the wrong path.
When you think about everything that you've done up to this point,
Mm-hmm.
what are some of landmark maybe matters that you had on, or something that you've done that for yourself personally is maybe top three things that you've done in your career and you're very happy that you did and you're very proud of?
Surviving for 26 years without debt and without a viable claim, I would say. And then also, not a specific instance, but a reoccurring instance when people really need help, and it might not be with the real estate transaction. It might be getting a divorce. They might have an issue adopting
Hmm.
a child. They call me, and I can make that connection and get them a job. That's fairly momentous career wise. And then I think when people blog about me, like when they're like, "Hey," or they'll say, "Janine's too hard, don't work with her," or they'll say, "Hey, when you really have a problem, call Janine." That I think that's pretty cool.
Certainly. For the rest of 2026, you continue to work hard and care deeply about your clients. What's the top priority? What's the North Star for you in terms of the things that you want to achieve
To
going
get a
forward?
really good team, people that do really care, that really would be. It's been my goal every year. I work at it every year. I've never accomplished it completely. I would love to do that. My husband has been instrumental these last, like, probably, he's always helped me 24/7, but particularly been very intentful, I would say, this last year to get us more AI driven.
Hmm.
So we're not relying on the person who's sick or has to stay home or is on vacation, all of those elements that are really, really, really hard to run a practice when people don't show up. And I don't mean physically all the time, I mean mentally, I mean all in.
Hmm.
So those parallel put together, it's been my goal every year, and particularly this year with the AI piece, I think we might get closer to it.
The app is interesting one because it can be a double-edged sword. It can give certain efficiencies and make things better, but left unattended, it can also make people pay less attention, make some assumptions. Obviously, we've all seen the recent news about the hallucinations in the big cases and the impact it has. When you think about implementing that piece, what are maybe some of the guardrails that you're putting in place to make
Oh,
sure
we
that?
double check everything. It's just get things started. It's a data entry.
Hmm.
So instead of putting John Smith in the computer reads John Smith from the contract.
Hmm.
Instead of like pulling the deed from the GIS website, the computer pulls the deed from the GIS website. So it's more data entry and data pull. It's not data analysis. That's the difference with us.
That's a very important difference because I think the mistake some other firms do is that they do initial thinking using AI, not using it in terms of
Mm,
the procedurally. And what you're talking about is actually using it in a way that makes you faster, but
yes,
doesn't delegate the thinking.
right, exactly.
You mentioned you have sons growing up. Do you wish for them to go into law as well and to continue your legacy?
Mm-mm. I mean, there's no legacy here. Again, like I practice law. I I like the law. It's the people that I love. It's
Hmm.
the interaction. It's like you're at a party, and you're doing a closing and you get to the finish line and it's a win-win and those sorts of things. But there's no off button. And even my colleagues that I talk to that work for big firms, if you're going to be good at the practice of law, there's no off button if you're a deal attorney. Now, if you're in house or you're doing a different type of maybe estate, maybe but not really because people would pass unexpectedly and those sorts of things. But with law,
Hmm.
there's really no end. It's not being like in the financial sector where the markets open a certain amount of time and you may do like a little bit of research, but you're not constantly working nonstop on transactions.
Hmm.
Um, and I do okay, but quite frankly, I'm the dumb one at the law school. My friends that went to Wall Street are basically retired, and I'm still chugging away. So the return, on investment isn't the same. But again, if you're money driven, of course I want to make money. That's one thing, but I'm purposeful driven, and that's the
Hmm.
difference. But I think you can be purposeful driven without being, a lawyer.
Hmm.
And I would never do it with my husband is the most instrumental aspect of my career. Unless, one of my children had it don't have to be a spouse, but someone in their sphere that was like him to help run the practice, it would not be the same. Not even close. Because I
It
don't
has.
have to worry about the money. He handles it. He knows like if we're getting attacked with a virus or someone's trying to tap into our accounts, all those sorts of things. That attorneys are horrible business people, generally speaking.
Many attorneys, I think, would absolutely agree with you because the practice of law and running the business of law could be very, very different things. And we're certainly seeing that.
Right.
I think it's good to have that awareness of understanding what aspect of that you want to do. If you want to be relationship driven, mission
Mm-hmm.
driven, then the environment and the way the firm operates has to support that. It can't go against that. You mentioned again you clients that you go extra step for to support them. One of the sometimes the criticism of the legal profession from the client side is that the lawyers can be very reactive. Quite often on the client side as well, they will only go for an advice only when there is something that needs to be done, not so much for maybe proactive or going strategy.
Mm-hmm.
In your experience, would you agree with that? Or have you done organized your relationship so that you're always seen as an advisor and even maybe before there is a transaction or there is any direct work to be done, the clients are coming to you for your advice proactively?
1,000%, especially in real estate. I just talked about it again yesterday. Is that some of my clients will pay me money before they even go to closing or you go into a contract to look a little bit at the transaction. 1,000%. I think that's a specialty that we can give here that other
Mhm.
firms don't necessarily do.
Do you think it's because of the area of law that you practice, or the same principle can actually be applied across other potential practice areas for other firms as well?
I think it's a combination, but I think definitely the area of practice helps because it's transactional and you're buying a house. You're not in a car accident. You
Hmm.
don't have a death. I mean, estate sort of you're forward looking. You don't have a divorce. So real estate generally is an elective transaction unless you're forced by foreclosure or otherwise. But yes, I think that given the real estate, it definitely tends to be more forward thinking than reactive thinking.
Interesting. Janine, if somebody wants to know more about the work you've done, or maybe they are thinking of using your services as well, where can they learn more online?
They can Google me, quite frankly, or what do you want to call it? Like ChatGPT search me and see what I've done and those sorts of things. I do have a website, which is just at www.m-hlaw.com. There's not too much on there, but or you could just look to see the transactions that I've worked on and ask clients how was I able to work with it.
And we'll make sure to include the link in the show notes as well so they
Mm-hmm.
have an easy time finding you online. Perfect. Janeen, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you so much for having me. I was just very honored, and you're such a gentleman. I'm very grateful.
Thank you, Janeen. Thank you.
All right, bye.